Ms. Pont, let's
Okay.
start.
Very good. All right. Well, good evening. My name is Sally Pont. I'm a college counselor and have been one for many years. Let me just let you know what is happening in the world of college applications. So by January of every student's senior year, they have completed the first round of early applications by November 1 or November 15th in some cases. And then if they're admitted, great, done, poof, we're happy, throw a party, it's over. However, with most seniors, that is not typically the case. Just the lucky few get in, and so most students spend Christmas break doing applications, and January 1st through 10th is the span of those applications. So I have just now completed the full application cycle with my seniors. So presumably they're done. Many of them will have interviews. Many of them will also be writing letters of continued interest for colleges that they've been deferred from in the early round. So there are still things that are happening with the seniors, but very little. So as a result, as a college counselor, my focus shifts on the juniors. What is happening with juniors right now is ideally they're taking a very challenging course load. They're looking forward to lots of APs at the end of the school year that will matter tremendously in the college application process. In addition, they have also started very aggressively taking their standardized tests, so the SAT or the ACT. I know that lots of kids like to get it done in the beginning of their junior year, but oftentimes that's just not in the cards. And I will say that most students do their best typically just before senior year. So the SAT has a test in August, and I've had many seniors hit their highest mark during that test. And the ACT has a test in July and September, and I've had many seniors hit their mark at that time. So your juniors will be looking forward to also maximizing their test scores at that time. In addition, what juniors need to be thinking about very seriously is how they are going to be leaders in their community during their senior year. This is a really important question that I ask all the juniors that I work with, and actually all students that I work with at every grade level. How are you going to be a leader in your community when you are at your peak at your senior year? That's very important, not only for the kinds of essays that they're going to be writing for their applications, but also for the letters of recommendation that faculty members and counselors will be writing about the students in order to support those applications. So standardized testing, strong academics and APs, and leadership are the three things that I have juniors focus on in the second semester of junior year. All right, so that hits the high point. So now I'll start to field some questions. Okay.
Any questions from the floor? Okay, I will ask one. Okay, when shall juniors or the seniors to be start writing college essays?
That's a great question. So there's typically what I have students do is start their writing at the beginning of summer before senior year. And ideally they get the bulk of the writing done by the end of summer. And the reason why I ask them to do it at that time is for two reasons. Number one, they have the time to focus on it. Number two, they have the maturation to write well. And also, summer after junior year, not summer before senior year. Also, in many cases, the students have key activities or summer experiences or summer programs that they do during the summer after junior year that are going to factor very, very keenly in their applications. So those are stories that need to be told and can't be told any earlier than summer before senior year. I know that many people are eager to have their children start on their applications, but it is quite premature to do so until the end of junior year. Okay, I have a question about ACT versus SAT. So there's a lot of things that I can say about that. First and foremost, it doesn't matter in the eyes of the admissions office which tests the child takes. Every school regards them equally. So I've had every single year, I have at least one student, typically more, who gets admitted to Stanford. Some of them have taken the ACT, some of them have taken the SAT. Doesn't matter. Harvard, same. Yale, same. In addition, I've had students who have been test optional get admitted to those top schools. So that is also in the mix since COVID. So I can't say one or the other. Really, the bottom line with the ACT versus the SAT, the ACT is a bit faster paced. The SAT is a little bit more in depth. I will also say that the SAT is also a little bit more math heavy. So the SAT does favor the people who are a little bit more deft at math, and the ACT is better for people who can move very, very quickly. All right. So when should the children ask recommendation letters for high school? That is an excellent question. I ask all of my students to request their letters of recommendation at the end of their junior year. Typically, they will ask junior teachers, so maybe their AP Lang teacher, or their APUSH teacher, their AP Bio teacher, their AP Calc teacher, major academic courses. I want them to ask them face to face, say please and thank you. This is a lot of effort that these faculty members put into these letters. It is not an easy task. But if they do so before the end of the school year, that gives the teachers the opportunity to potentially write them over the summer, which I know many teachers like that freedom to do so. Lots of English teachers get weighed down by writing letters of recommendation, so they need to get a leg up. So the end of junior year, ask teachers face to face, say please, say thank you, and thank them again and again. Great. Okay. The community leadership. So that's an interesting question. Should the community leadership be related to the student's future major? I don't see that that's necessary or even possible in some instances. The reality is that when colleges are accepting students, they are accepting 17-year-olds who may or may not know what they're going to be studying in college. However, what they are looking for are a lot of intangible qualities. They are looking for commitment and perseverance and grit and empathy. So all those intangibles manifest themselves in leadership. So being student body president, or running a club, or doing hundreds of hours of community service might be related to a future major, but it really just demonstrates the child's ability to commit at a very high level and also leave their footprint. And I think that is by far more important than gearing whatever leadership role it is towards the future major.
Awesome.
Okay. The next question. Okay, the SAT subject tests, those don't exist anymore. They were done away with 2 years ago. It's a very interesting question. They just vanished, poof. I think that they were not cost effective for the College Board, and there were only a couple of schools that were requiring them. And so they were done away with altogether. So the only thing in the United States that resembles a subject test are the APs. So the AP tests, they are very significant in college admissions because they demonstrate a student's proficiency in a subject, they demonstrate a student's ability to master it and to execute it in a very aggressive time format. So lots of schools look very carefully at AP scores. And so students who've taken a lot of APs prior to the applications are very lucky. Now, the next question about the SAT, about the UC application. The UC application is and will always be test blind. After COVID, the COVID was the big shakeup because during that spring and summer, all the tests were canceled. And as a result, many schools throughout almost all schools throughout the country became test optional. The UC schools became test blind, which means they don't accept test scores, period. As a result, what the UC schools are looking for are high grades and also, and I cannot emphasize this enough, degree of course difficulty. So getting all A's in easy classes, not going to get you into Berkeley and UCLA. Getting all A's in hard classes, yes, that will get you into UCLA and Berkeley. So that's become the objective metric of those applications. Now, one must also remember that the UC application, which is a self-contained entity, also has no letters of recommendation, but it does have a very, very long activities list, 20 spots for activities and honors. So think about that and think about all the things your children can and should do in terms of activities in their community, sports, music, theater, community service, et cetera, et cetera. Also, the UC application has 4 essays, 350 words long, which is fairly substantial. And I always have my students write about 4 different things to demonstrate the breadth of their talents. Let's see. So,
how many letters of rec needed?
So typically, the private schools, so Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, et cetera, they will require 2 academic letters of recommendation. Most of the public universities ask for 1. So Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, UNC, UVA, they'll ask for 1. Some of them will allow for more. But every child should have that safety net of asking 2 academic teachers so that they're ready. There is nothing worse than at the last minute scrambling to find someone to write a letter of recommendation. That's not going to be a resounding letter. So best to ask early, best to ask 2 academic teachers. Even if the child winds up only applying to UC schools, just to be safe. Let's see.
Summer activities important.
Yes.
Too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They are, yes, thank you for asking. Summer activities are incredibly important, and oftentimes they are the formative experience for every child. Just as an example, I work with a student who was admitted early to Yale University, and he was very lucky in experiencing an astronomy camp sponsored by MIT, in which he was able to plot. I mean, it was all summer, and his small group plotted the path of an asteroid. I mean, literally. It required multivariable calculus and lots of statistics, lots of Python. And at the end of summer, they submitted it to whatever the receptacle of information about patterns of asteroids. It is now his scientific research is now documented forever. And he wrote about that in his personal statement, and voila, he is now going to be matriculating to Yale University. So summer experiences are so formative, and so potentially life-changing. Travel experiences. I actually have another student who was admitted early to Williams College, and she wrote about her experience. She spent 4 weeks alone at a language camp in San Miguel de Allende in Mexico. And she wrote about that, and it was absolutely beautiful. So summer experiences are very formative, very life-changing, and also make for tremendous stories.
So come to the North Pole, okay? We have an
Yes.
Arctic.
That would make for a great story.
Exactly.
So the IB, let me talk about the IB track. So the IB is it's International Baccalaureate is a program. It's an academic program somewhat similar to AP in that it follows a particular academic trajectory up until a highest point and expects students to take tests at the end. It's very intellectual, very well regarded by college admissions. Now, the trick of the IB is juniors don't take IB tests. Those are taken at the end of senior year. So there's not this whole battery of 4s and 5s that can be presented to the college admissions office, but college admissions offices know that. It is important to note that when college admissions offices get the application for a student, so for in Stanford's admissions office, and they get a particular application, they will also know the academic program of the high school from which that child that child attends. So they'll see that in the school profile. So with every application goes the school profile, which is just a back and front document that outlines the academic program, the degree of rigor, the average SAT score at the school, the average ACT score, the number of AP classes offered, the number of IB classes offered, et cetera, et cetera. So every child is judged in the context of their own school. So, the Del Norte kids are not compared to the Canyon Crest kids because they probably have very different academic programs versus Bishop School kids, all different academic programs. So you can't compare them. And the admissions office knows that. And the students in Wichita and the students in Chicago and the students in Hanover, New Hampshire, all different. And the admissions offices know that, and they judge the child based on the academic program at their unique high school. Has the child challenged themselves within the context of their school? If the answer is yes, move on, closer to a yes. So that's the beauty of IB and AP is that it does demonstrate that the child is challenging themselves. So both of them are excellent ways for your children to keep moving up in their academic program and also impressing admissions offices with their rigor. All right, so
yeah, Ms. Pond, one question about summer. What about if I go working in Rubio's and Starbucks for the
great
summer? Okay.
I'll tell you, it's all about the intangibles, so working a real job where you have to get out of bed and be someplace on time and be responsible and be productive and be accountable, that is just as viable as attending a summer camp where you get to measure asteroids, because it's hard. And sometimes it's necessary. I mean, many students are putting money away for their college education, and that is going to be very resonant in an admissions office. So, being busy, and I think that the key word that I just used was accountability and responsibility. So certainly a job for a 17-year-old is a rigorous thing, and many students don't do it, and those who do, I think, really do become mature beyond their years. Okay, so I have a question. When should a junior take SAT? So I'll just say this. I'll just talk about ACT and SAT kind of interchangeably. So there are tests all year. There are times when a junior is busier than other times. So I think you have to weigh and measure when your child isn't as busy. So if the child is in the middle of a sports season or in the middle of a production of a play, then that is not a good time to take an SAT. So try to schedule other, at other times. Now there are April and May tests for both, for the ACT and the SAT. Those are tough because that's AP season. So that gets a little tricky. So what I will, now we're in January right now, so it's hard. We've, the December SAT is when I typically ask students to take their test. But that's passed. So if your child has not taken a test yet, I would highly recommend that you register them for the March SAT or the April ACT to get the ball rolling. But also know that they will, even for the November 1st deadline, which is real, there's an October 15th deadline, but November 1st is the big deadline. That's the first big deadline. Your children will be able to take the test in the ACT in September or the SAT in October, and no problem, those scores will make it for that deadline.
Yeah. Yeah. My son took SAT, of course, that time was subject, end of October, senior year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's normal. And I'll tell you, I do think that, particularly with boys, just because of physiological maturation, they're smarter in October of their senior year than they were in October of their junior year. A lot. Maturation is an amazing thing, and I watch it all the time. So do know that sometimes your son or daughter will wake up one morning and be 50 points smarter. Thank you.
So,
Absolutely.
Ms. Pont, next question is very long. I'll just make it really short. It's about STEM major and whether it's necessary to take AP Lang. Or just regular honor English or regular English. So that's the first question. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a lot of answers to that because I don't know your particular child. So I'm just gonna troubleshoot. As I said before, it is what the college admissions offices are looking for is high grades in rigorous courses, no matter what the major choice is, no matter what. And if you're applying to the most competitive colleges, they'll expect you to take the most competitive courses in all disciplines. No doubt. I mean, Yale, Harvard, Princeton, they'll want you to take AP Lang as well as AP Bio, as well as AP Calc. I mean, just you need to be able to do all of it. Unless you have some very rarefied specialty. I mean, you'd have to win the Nobel Prize. But so that being said, I also said that you want to be able to get A's. Okay, so there's a little bit of a tension here. So what I will always say to a student, when they're asking me, should I take AP Lang? Well, do you think you might not get an A? I don't know. If the child can look me in the eye and say, I will not be able to get an A, no way, it's impossible, then I'll give them a pass. But they'll have to understand the risk of not challenging themselves at the highest level that their school offers. That's the give and take.
So vice versa, what if I were English major? I can't take AP Physics, too hard for me.
Again, I would look you in the eye and say, you're telling me you cannot get an A in AP Physics? No, can't get an A. Okay, all right, but know the risk. Yale wants its English majors to be able to do physics.
Got it. Wow.
I know the standards are high.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Question about essays.
Yeah.
So how many essays should a student write? One unique essay for each college. So this is going to be a long answer to the question, so just bear with me. There is most colleges are on something called the Common Application. And the Common Application gets submitted to nearly every college. So Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Michigan, Ohio State, even University of Washington and University of Texas, who previously had not been on it, are on it now. Hooray. Now that application has something called the personal statement. It's a 650-word essay. It's the showpiece of the application. It goes to every college. That's one essay. That they don't ever rewrite that. However, schools also have their individual questions. Some of them a lot, some of them a little, and a handful, none at all. So Northeastern University, no extra essays. So they're only looking at the one big essay, the personal statement, and then your grades and your standardized test scores and your letters of recommendation. However, a school like Stanford or Yale has one of the most rigorous ones. Both of them have 8 extra pieces of writing. Now, some of them are short, some of them are longer. Some of them are very unique to those schools. So in the end, on average, kids will write between 10 and 15 essays of varying lengths. And at some point in time, they start to steal from themselves. And we talk about it. I, as a counselor, will talk about it with them. Okay, here is your essay about measuring the asteroid that you used for this. Actually, that's a bad example. So here is your essay about your short essay about why you want to study computer science. Okay, now we can use it here for why you want to go to Michigan. We'll make it similar for why you want to go to the University of Pennsylvania. Slightly different length, have to do our research on the University of Pennsylvania, but we can make it work. So we adapt, we learn to adapt certain essays. But in the end, there's a lot of writing that goes on, a lot. Students will write up to about 15 or so essays, but if they've applied to Stanford and Yale, even more.
Yeah.
Okay.
See.
So yeah, let's see.
So Ms. Pond, the question about this AP Land parent wanted the second half is about foreign language requirements. 2 years, 3 years, and if you study Spanish, say in middle school for 2 years, do I have to take foreign language in high school? So it's all the foreign language. And if I'm Chinese native and I just arrived in this country a couple of years ago, yeah, what should I do? Okay, that's all standard questions. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the reality is that every child needs to fulfill their high school's foreign language requirement. So they have to get a high school diploma. So there's that. Some schools, some universities are very rigid. Wow. Okay, sorry, just got a little text from somebody. Some schools are very rigid in their language expectations. So if you for example, the University of Colorado at Boulder, very clear that they expect 3 years of foreign language. Now, how that manifests itself for language learners at the high schools is negotiable, but it becomes a little bit tricky when you actually have to demonstrate that to the admissions offices. So let me chunk this answer out. So if your child is just is a native speaker of English, then they really should take 3 years of a foreign language, Spanish, French, whatever your high school offers, at least. Now, what I also encourage students to do the same with, as with English, as with science, as with math, I know that colleges want students to go as far as they can in foreign language. Don't take 3 years and then move on, so that you can take more STEM classes or more, whatever is in your interest. No, they want students to pursue language all the way, because the point is to learn a language. The point is not just to fulfill a requirement. So now the statistics all show that really only about, I think that the statistic is 20% of high school students will take foreign language all 4 years of high school. So that's pathetic, frankly. And so Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, they jump up and down when they see that a child has gone all the way with foreign language and has mastered it and has taken AP Spanish or AP French and done well on the exam and spent time in that country for a week or 2 weeks, 4 weeks. Wonderful. They applaud that. It only ever complements any discipline that they're in. You know, the global world we live in requires that we be multilingual. So even though most schools only expect 3 years, require 3 years, they love seeing more. Now, for non-native speakers, there are for those who are not even green card carriers, the reality is that there's a handful of schools that will still require that students take the TOEFL. So just be prepared for that. That's the test of English as a foreign language. Actually, there are other manifestations of it these days. TOEFL is sort of is just one test. So there's also IELTS. There's also Duolingo, which is very easy to take. I mean, you can do it right now. So there's plenty of ways for students to just check that box. So if your child's high school has not required foreign language, but if your child is applying to NYU, gosh, I think it's University of Michigan, and then a handful of other schools, be ready to have them sit down in August before school starts and just take Duolingo or TOEFL or whatever you feel they are most comfortable doing. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. So also minimum parents private message minimum number of letter of rec.
Minimum would be 0. So the UC schools require 0.
Okay. Common App is 2. You explained.
Well, so private schools, Common App 2, yes. And
optional.
Well, in many schools it's 2 that are required. Now, when we start talking about optional letters, I mean, so for example, if there's a mentor or an employer, et cetera, then that would be an optional letter, a third letter, and some schools will allow for that. Most schools, not all, but most.
Okay, yeah. I myself write letter of rec for our interns when they perform well. Okay, great. So next question, international students. Parents asking you whether you have experience with international students, Ms. Pont.
I have quite a bit of experience with international students. So what would they like to know?
We'll see. Have you got kids into top schools from?
Well, actually, so last year I worked with 3 international students. One who was 2 in Shanghai, and one of them is now at Cambridge, and the other student is at Wellesley. And then a young woman who is from Beijing and was at boarding school in Canada, and she's also at Wellesley.
Yes.
So yes. Now this year I'm not working with any international students, but next year will be a very interesting year. A couple kids. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Is class ranking important for UC schools?
That's Maggie, I wish I could give you a straight answer. So the answer is, of course, yes. Because, obviously there's going to be communication between the counseling office at your child's high school and the UC schools. And so I'm assuming you live in the state of California. So yes, if I think it's the top 15% are guaranteed admission into a UC school. Now, that's a little ambiguous, mind you, and that doesn't mean that number 16 is not going to get in, or even 30 or 50, but do know that they are counting and that the UC schools are paying attention.
So now often parents are asking, we live in kind of like, I won't say upper middle zip code, but good school district. Okay, that's probably a more PC word. Should I just move house to a not a good school district so my kids can perform better or get better chance get into top UCs?
Perhaps, there's a give and a take with that. I think you're playing with a little bit of fire and you're oversimplifying somewhat. You can move to a rural school district. There won't be as many opportunities there. The education might not be as strong. So I'm not sure it'll necessarily pay off the way you want it to.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think stay where you are and, make sure that your child enjoys his or her or their education.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Also, would you recommend some summer camp activities if we can't find any?
There's a million out there. So I mean, I would be curious to know what your child likes to do, because every major university has some sort of residential summer camp or an online camp. There's some amazing things for kids to do. All you need to do is spend a little time Googling to find that. But, you can just start with Brown University, just to start, has hundreds of summer classes. And most of them, luckily in summer of 2023, will be on campus 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, leadership camps, academic camps, arts camps, theater camps, everything. So college campuses are teeming with activity. Some more expensive than others. Some of them worth every penny. So they are all out there. And I'm a big fan of a lot of the programs on summer campuses. And I mentioned Brown just as an example. It's not necessarily the best, but it's just one that has hundreds of classes that are of varying stripes. Okay, let me answer this question. How can sports activities help with admission? So, athletics is a very time-consuming activity for kids to do. It is absolutely a place where kids gain their ability to work with others, their intangible leadership qualities, their ability to win and lose. There's so many intangible lessons learned through athletics. And so it is always an important thing for children to potentially do in high school that they can that can be on their application and that they can potentially write about. So I always feel very, very strongly that kids should do sports. And even if they're on losing teams, especially if they're on losing teams, even if they don't get playing time, being a member of a team is a really important lesson to learn. And it's something that admissions offices are looking for. Oftentimes, especially lately, we're emerging from the pandemic and children sitting at their desk and only doing things via Zoom. I've worried about kids not working in teams. And so I always make sure that no matter what the students that I work with do, that they do something in connection with their peers. Sports is a natural. There are other ways to do it. There are other team-based activities, but sports is just, it's a way to be part of a team. and have fun and stay healthy. And admissions offices love it. I mean, there's just no denying it.
Okay, so the next question about international volunteering organization versus the local community service, which one is preferred by AO?
You know, I can't say that one, I can't really take that out of context. I mean, I guess my response would be, you know, not necessarily level of time, but level of responsibility. You know, has the student, whatever the student has participated in, has the student risen to a level where they've had a lot of responsibility? Or has it just been getting on a Zoom call once a week to tutor a child on the other side of the world, getting off, never thinking about it again till the following week? So that's what I would ask. Is it, has your child, you know, maybe started off doing that, you know, just doing, you know, one-on-one sessions, but has the participation escalated to the point of leadership, responsibility, having some sort of impact on the organization as a whole?
Okay, so next two questions are the same, Ms. Pont. It's about how many times students should take SAT or ACT. They're all the same.
Well, I mean, certainly the College Board would like you to take it lots of times. But there's one thing that I need to be crystal clear about, is that when your children are applying to college, they get to choose the scores they send. So schools will never, ever know how many times your children have taken it. So, but really in the end, the goal is to just send one score, you know, one highest verbal, highest math, send, goodbye, great, gonna get in. Now, many schools will super score, and that's a combination of a highest verbal and a highest math from two different tests, or you will send two tests to the schools with a highest math and a highest verbal. So at the most, your children will be submitting 2 scores. So if your child takes 10 tests, no one will ever know. That being said, I do feel that at some point kids get exhausted and frustrated. You know, if your child is taking the test multiple times and isn't improving, then I always say pull back, you know, skip a test date and then, you know, try to improve for the next one. But you know, there comes a point where there's a little bit of burnout on behalf of the kids. So I would say that there's no right or wrong amount of times. I mean, I've certainly known many kids who've taken it lots of times and then finally had the breakthrough. But also know that colleges don't know, and they won't ever know. That didn't used to be true, but now it's true.
Okay, so another SAT, summer camp versus SAT. Should the kids lock themselves in a 6-week expensive SAT prep camp?
So that is no way to spend a summer. The kids need to get out. Summer is a golden opportunity to do enrichment that is outside the classroom, outside the conventional academic realm. So SAT all summer is not not the way to go. Okay. So you just said, right, students are not required to submit all the test scores, right? You just answered the question. Yeah. Nope.
Got it. Okay. So now this is my question. If I'm a great student, outstanding student, do I really need a counselor, or can I do it DIY?
Good luck. You know, here's what I would say about that. It's you know, I've worked with kids who, you know, in my heart, I know they could have done it on their own. But it wouldn't have been as much fun. And those lonely, scary times when you feel like you're not going to get in anywhere, having a counselor really helps. And those lonely, scary times are often, in addition, and I'm going to give you an example right now. In 14 minutes, when this call is over, I'm going to get on a call with one of my seniors because he has one application left. It is due tomorrow and he is freaking out. So only a counselor can get you out of that situation. It is a lot of work to apply to college, and it's exhausting and demoralizing, and you often need someone to make you feel better about it. So, as I said, I mean, I've worked with kids who, I know, yep, they could have been fine, but it would have been so much harder, so much harder. And, and maybe that little something that the counselor brings to the table added that extra touch that made Stanford or Yale or Harvard or the University of Michigan or wherever their dream school is, that little touch made it happen. And maybe that's just an intangible ability to believe in themselves. One of the things that I think that I do is, I believe in the kids often much more than they believe in themselves. And which, especially the kid I'm about to meet in 13 minutes, I believe in that kid, which is why I'm going to get on a call with him at 10:30 at night, my time.
Thank you, Ms. Pont. Thank you. So this parent had a question about senior or junior year summer program, which one's most important, something like that. Oh, he's wanted you to confirm junior to senior year. Is that the summer program is most important? Basically, the program after junior, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big summer. I mean, the kids are mature and they're ready and they're academically primed, and usually they've taken some pretty hard classes junior year, so they're smart. So yes, summer between junior and senior year is really, really key. Also, that's the summer that the greatest stories come out.
Yes, very good. Yeah. So AP courses, how many AP courses a student should plan to take, junior and the senior year if he plans to apply for the top STEM program?
Yeah, it's a great question. It will, again, I can't impress upon you enough. It will completely depend on what your high school offers. So, if your high school only offers AP Calc, AP Bio, AP Chem, and one level of physics, that's the best you can do, 4. But if your high school offers all of the physics, then it becomes, and AP Stat, then, you can, it will depend on what the high school actually can do. I will say this, the AP Sciences are all regarded as some of the hardest AP courses, period. They are hard. AP Chem, hard. AP Physics C, hard. Now, when we go over to the math side, AP Calc BC is considered hard. AP Stat, not so much. So when I advise kids, when they're pinched and they're overwhelmed and they have all these AP classes and they are also doing this activity and that activity and something needs to give, well, they don't have to take every single math class. And they probably don't need to take every single AP Physics class. But that will just depend on what STEM field that they're going into.
Thank you. Thank you. Can the students retake AP test without letting the college know the previous scores?
Well, so the AP scores are all self-reported. So until after the kids actually are admitted, and then they submit the official scores to get credit, to get the actual credit. Some schools don't give a credit, but if the school gives it, they submit it when they've committed to the school. So that being said, retaking AP tests is a very hard thing to do. So I have lots of kids who say, oh, I will retake AP Calc BC because I got a 3 last year. You won't remember it. I don't ever recommend that a child retake an AP test. It's so, you're reclimbing a mountain and you didn't make it up the first time. So I'm not sure that I would recommend that.
Okay. So I think we have just time for a couple more questions. If I have a dream school offer summer camp, say, hey, Brown or Cornell, should I go to the summer camp offered by that dream school?
Well, there's certainly so let me just clarify. There's no guarantee of admission. Zero, zip, zilch. But, you always try to play the card. I mean, it would be really amazing. And so the dream scenario of what you're describing, if your dream school is Brown, you go to Brown summer program and you take a class with a Brown professor and you work very hard and do very well. And then you approach that professor at the end and say, will you write me a letter of recommendation? And the professor says, yes, it will help. It's not a guarantee, but that's the dream scenario. Now, obviously, all those steps need to fall into place. You attend the summer program, take the class with the professor, do well, impress the professor, and then see what happens. But that's the best case scenario.
So last year we had an NYU ED. Was that kid attending NYU camp and got a letter of rec?
He didn't have a letter of rec.
Okay, he did not.
Not from them.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
He did attend. He got in on his portfolio.
Okay. Got it.
Absolutely. Okay. His talent got him in.
Yeah. Okay. His talent. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, so what should be a good SAT score for the top 30 or 40?
Okay. So I'll say, I'm going to throw some numbers out. So I'm going to just say, this makes me wince to say this. And I wouldn't have said this 10 years ago. But the magic number for the SAT is 1500. And the second magic number is 1550. So that's the SAT. And the magic number for the ACT is 3435. So that's high. So I will say, the student that I work with who was admitted early to Stanford, he had a 1540. And that was as high as he was going to get. He stopped in August and we prayed and he got in. That's not why he got in, not because we prayed. He got in because he was very talented. But so 1540 will get you into Stanford. But that and I could give you other examples. But so typically when we're starting to talk about that range, over 1500. Okay.
Taking harder APs in senior year, would that help?
Okay. Well, once you start getting up to that level, those are the hardest APs in general, with a few exceptions. So the answer is yes. I mean, in admissions offices, they know the harder APs versus the easier APs. And certainly admissions offices do not want students to take an easy course load senior year. They want to see that students are challenging themselves all the way through. So, yes, taking harder senior year classes help. And then I'm gonna see if I have time for your question, Dan, but I'm gonna jump down to the bottom one. Do colleges look at second semester senior grades? No, they do not. They will get the mid-year report, which is first semester, and then they'll get the final transcript after graduation. And by that time, your children have been admitted, you put the deposit down, and only if your child has dropped to a D will anything happen. So second semester grades just sustain. Now, the question that I'll end with is, what if parents disagree with essay approaches? So there's a lot of essays that your children are going to write. And those are the vehicles through which your children are going to convey those intangible qualities that I described earlier. In addition, they're also going to demonstrate your child's writing ability. So, they have to be beautiful. They have to be emotional. I always say to kids, you want to write an essay that's either going to make them laugh or make them cry. One or the other. And if you do that, you'll get it. So these essays are not just lists of awards. And oftentimes parents want to see awards and accolades and honors highlighted in essays. But that is not what essays are for. Essays are to convey personality, character, and values. Okay. And then last one, considering top 20, 1400 essays. Okay. What does LAC stand for? Liberal Arts College. Okay. Top 20 Liberal Arts College, 1400. So if it's a 1400, what I would say for a liberal arts college, I would just go test optional and call it a day. Absolutely. Never, this is the philosophy. Only give the admissions office the things that demonstrate your child's excellence. Okay? That's all they'll be measured on. Just give them the excellence. So excellent grades, excellent activities. If the standardized test is not out, if it's not excellent, outstanding, then just don't send it.
Okay, good. I know you need to go.
I know I need to go work with a student.
Okay, I will hang out for a couple minutes. So if they have other questions, and I will share the summer camp myself. Okay.
Okay, awesome.
I'll let you go.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, Miss Pond. Good night. Yeah. Thank you.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. So anyway, yeah, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. 如果有什么问题的话，我也可以帮你们回答一下啊。Miss Pond 比我更有经验。那我们的那个 We have a summer camp, just want to let you know， 我们去北极7月17号到8月7号，我这里跟大家分享一下。7月17号到8月7号，我们去4个岛 ，OK？ 呀，那个我把链接放在 chat 里面了。如果你们想看一下的话，我们有 English menu、Chinese menu， 然后里面有 research report， 以前的学生写的，就是经过这个 trip 他们写的 research report。我们有6 areas of research，OK？ 都在 Haddee 上面，你们可以 search 一下，一到 Haddee 就 search 一下 Arctic， 你找个 Arctic 你们就找到了。OK， 如果有想报名的话，我们1月底就截止了，因为我们要准备各种各样的这 commitment，right？ 用的游轮是 Arctic 的这个 Ocean Atlantic 是破冰的 special 的游轮，然后是大概200个人吧。总共的 clients 学生和家长是差不多120个人，另外80个人差不多 staff。OK， 行，那今天就到此为止。你们还有什么问题吗 ？OK， 谢谢。Yeah， 我们会给 replay。Yeah， we'll give a replay. OK， we'll record. It's already recorded. Yeah， sounds good. OK， thank you guys. 谢谢。OK，I'll see you next time.